That's what she said.
That's what she said.
That's what she said.
That's what she said.
Well, that's what she said.
Welcome to That's What She Said, conversations with interesting people from the worlds of sports, music, comedy, and more, talking about their lives, careers, successes, and failures. Welcome into the latest edition of That's What She Said with Sarah Spain, and I'm not going to lie, this is one of my favorite ones yet. Megan Rapinoe and Sue Bird together talking about their sports careers, how they met, what's next when they retire, hopefully not anytime soon, but when they do retire, activism in their sports, other interests and the health and need for interests and things that they care about outside of sports, when they came out publicly and why, their decision to do the body issue, all sorts of good stuff. These are just massive, like, athlete goals, couple goals, people goals, activist goals. I love these two women, and I really hope you guys enjoy the conversation. So here I am, chatting with Sue Bird and Megan Rapinoe.
That's what she said.
I know every week I say I'm super excited for my guest, and I am. No offense to any previous guests, always super excited. That's totally genuine. But this week, I am so excited to talk to Sue Bird and Megan Rapinoe. And I've already warned them that I'm not going to say all of their awards and accomplishments because that would take the whole pod. But you guys know who they are. Megan Rapinoe, gold medalist, World Cup champ, first and only player to score a goal Olympico at the Olympic Games. She's been on the Seattle Reign since 2013. On the Seattle Storm, we got Sue Bird, 2 NCAA champs, 3 WNBA champs, 4 Olympic gold medals, 11 All-Star teams, leader in assists, most starts, most WNBA games played, top 20 player of all time. Basically, these are some badass bitches, and I am so excited to talk to both of you. And on this pod, I like to start at the beginning. So I actually, Megan, want to start with what sounds like a quite idyllic high school and childhood experience in Redding, California. You got 6 siblings, you got a twin, played outside a ton, honor roll every semester, soccer at a high level, track, hoops. Was it as sort of all-American and perfect as it sounds?
It kind of was. Is that boring?
No, that's amazing.
It was pretty chill. My sister and I were the youngest of 6, so a couple of the siblings were kind of out. They'll say we're spoiled. I mean, I just say we deserve it, but that's another story. Yeah, it was good, but especially like early on growing up, we kind of lived on a little bit of land, so it was basically the rule was my mom has this crazy whistle that she can do, so like go out and play and do whatever you want, but don't be late after you hear the whistle, otherwise you're in big trouble.
I love that. 6 siblings and a twin. There's probably every article that you've read tells you something about what your personality should be based on those things. Which one is the most accurate?
I think I probably fit the stereotypes. I gladly embrace, and I'm the youngest of the twins as well. So Rachel is always like, everyone forgets that I'm the baby of the family too, and just lets you have all of these benefits. But yeah, I gladly embrace the youngest child that just sort of defer responsibility to the older ones.
Isn't it great? I love it. So you go on to play collegiately, and you tear your ACL your sophomore year, and I read that you talked about that sort of changing your perspective on sport. Was that because it was go, go, go your entire life? I mean, you were coached even by your dad at a young level, so it sounds like something that was even a family activity. Did that just give you some time to like look at whether you still loved it and wanted to do it, or what else you wanted to cultivate?
Well, I actually did it 2 times in a row. So the first time, I was just like, oh, no, this is fine. I'm going to come back so quick, and I'm awesome. And I'm like, 21 and stupid and totally invincible, even though I just tore my ACL. So that was the first process. And then it wasn't really until the second time that it happened that I kind of stepped back and was like, okay, I need to be a lot more patient and sort of work on other parts of myself. And I feel like that's where a lot of the growing happened, and sort of the perspective happened of just not being, I guess, a little arrogant and thinking that I could do it all myself, or I'm going to come back so quick and I'm going to be the fastest one to come back, and just sort of took my time. And I think that's kind of where my philosophy on injuries probably was solidified. I'm not one to like grind through everything, get through it. I'm like, no, if I don't feel right, then I'm going to take the time to get it right and make sure that I feel good on the field so I can do what I want.
How many ACL tears are we up to now in total?
3. I know, it's bad. It's just like I'm out with the old, in with the new.
Just keep getting new parts and stick them in there. See how long they last.
Exactly.
Sue, you sounded like you were, a very successful kid growing up on Long Island. Soccer, tennis, track, same sort of deal. Was it as idyllic as that sounded? Although it was Long Island, no judgment.
There's immediate judgment, which is fine. I get it. We like to call it Strong Island. I think that's
right.
Why people judge it. Yeah, it was, to Megan's point, kind of boring. Just got up, played sports all day, every day. And, when my mom yelled, come home for dinner, that's what I did. But it was fun. I mean, I had a great childhood. And
you had an older sister who was athletic as well, so you sort of were following her footsteps?
Yeah. So she's 5 years older. Her name's Jen. And 5 is not a great, amount when you're younger. So I was always trying to, follow her, be like her. And I was the annoying little sister. She wanted no part. Now we're much closer, which is great. 5 years is perfect now. But when we were younger, it was a little different. But I was lucky in that she was into sports, was really good at school. So she set the bar super high. And I was just always trying to get to it.
You go off to UConn, and was your relationship with Gino right away something where you knew he was going to bring out the best in you, or was that something that takes a little time because it's Gino and it's UConn?
Yeah, no, you don't realize it at first. You're told very quickly by the upperclassmen, like, listen, if he's not yelling at you, then you have a problem.
Right.
But still, you're like, whatever you are, 17, 18 years old when you first get there, and you're constantly being yelled at, so you can't really make that connection until much later.
Well, and then ACL tear for you. This was earlier, freshman season. How did that affect you mentally in terms of, you already had considered maybe not going to UConn because there had been 2 point guards that committed. So, once one of them stepped away, you figured you would be able to find your space and your role. Was there a concern about coming back from that and still being as dominant as you had hoped to be?
I think what happened with me was good research, by the way, because there was 2 point guards that were committed there. And then, one of them, they kind of were saying, oh, we still want you to come. It was very confusing. But then, one of them decommitted. And then I stepped in. And then I'd actually won the starting spot as a freshman, which is like unheard of. I only played 8 games before I tore my ACL. But what happened when I got hurt was in those 8 games, I did not play well. So, I did enough to get the spot. But it was really just between me and the other freshman point guard that was on the team. There weren't any other point guards. So it wasn't like I beat out some upperclassmen or something. So point being, I was not playing well. So when the injury happened, it was a wake-up call. I guess kind of similar to what Megan's saying. It was like all of a sudden this game was taken away from me. I'd probably just been taking it for granted, like, oh, I'm good at this. I'll be fine. No big deal. And then, boom, I can't play. Now it's like all these question marks. The next year I remember the classic, like, cut out the article. Mine was, UConn, they could win the national championship, but the big question mark is at point guard. And that's like what motivated me for the remainder. So it just, it fueled me. It 100% fueled me. And then I'm pretty sure had it not happened, I wouldn't have had the career I had in college and beyond.
So you're in college, and for a lot of people, that's sort of it. If it's not an Olympic level sport or it's not, something where there's a professional league. But for basketball, by then the WNBA existed, and there was that to look forward to. Gold medal teams and world championship teams were something to look forward to. When you entered UConn, knowing at what a high level they play at and how recruited you were, was that always the dream? Was it always, I'm going to play basketball until the wheels fall off and someone tells me I can't anymore?
Yes and no. It's funny. So talking about that ACL injury, probably like a couple months into my rehab, or after my surgery, my parents got a call. I didn't find this out till years later, sidebar, but my parents get a call, and it's from the coaching staff, and they're like, we're worried about Sue. We're worried about Sue. And they're like, what? Why? I'm like, what's going on? And they're like, she's taking this too well. She's hanging out with her friends. She's living life. Like, this is it. She's taking this too well. We're concerned. And, okay, so point being, again, like, basketball is obviously a humongous part of my life. It's a part of who I am and all that other stuff. But I always kind of had this other side to me, that I could easily tap into, whether it was friends or hanging out or just even though it takes up. I mean, now it's kind of hard to even say this, but because it takes up so much of my time. But even though it takes up so much of my time and so much of my mental space, it's not like my entire being. So as pertained to like being a professional and playing in the Olympics, I just kind of took it as it came, and it was like, okay. I remember Coach Oriema was the assistant for the 2000 Olympics, and he came back from that experience. So I was just now entering my junior year, and he was like, hey, if you want to be the Olympic point guard, like, you have a chance. And I was like, oh, I do? Okay, I'll try that. You know what I mean? And the same with being drafted. It was like, oh, the draft's coming up. Hey, you might get picked number 1. I was like, really? Okay.
Cool.
Not to say that I was, not to say that I didn't care and I wasn't motivated in trying, but I always had this odd balance that I don't know, it just was who I was. So that's kind of how that all unfolded.
It probably helps you. One of my best friends is a 2-time Olympic pole vaulter, and in between her jumps, she would just like read Glamour magazine and not pay attention. And I swear it probably helped her. She just kind of didn't get in her head about it. Megan,
totally.
In soccer, you kind of have to know earlier because of youth teams, and you can play at the national level so much younger. What was that like for you growing up? Was it always the goal? Did you know that this was going to be something that would cause you to travel all over the world and compete internationally?
Not really, to be honest. I mean, I always loved playing, and that was the sport that I was into the most. I think I was a little bit of a late bloomer, so I wasn't on like every team or every ODP team. I didn't really kind of break in until like maybe my junior year of high school. So I was kind of a late bloomer in that sense. So I was kind of just sort of going along with it. I'm like, I don't really know. I know I'm good, but I'm not better than like all these other players who are doing all these things. So I think for me, or sort of early on, it was more like focused on college and getting into college and get a scholarship and all that. But I think sort of at the end of high school, it kind of dawned on me a little bit that maybe there was some bigger opportunity there.
As much as the professional soccer leagues allow you a bit more stability in terms of playing and the ability to play more often, they're less steady than, World Cup and Olympics, which is always coming back around. So was that tough for you to be a part of this group that first plays in the WPS and then watch the Chicago Red Stars go away? Then you join Magic Jack, and then the league goes away altogether. That sort of moving along and taking your talents to wherever you can use them. How is that in terms of not knowing what's coming next or if it's going to last?
Yeah, it's frustrating because I think in a broad sense, you just want there to be, a sustainable league. We feel like we have a good product. There's enough good players, and you want that to be successful. Lucky for us on the national team, we did sort of have that stability because we do so much with the national team. The national team is more like a club team, to be honest. We're with them more than any other professional team. But I always love having the league. Honestly, it's nice having a little break from the national team to just live in one space and to like kind of have a different vibe, play with different players, and you just kind of get a different perspective. But we were always very lucky to have that consistency. But I think everyone feels the same. It's only 20 people too that really have that consistency, which is not really the best. So I always felt way worse for the other players who either had to go overseas or figure something out at home, and sort of we're like truly waiting in the balance of whether a league was going to come back or not. We always had at least some sense of stability. Yeah,
absolutely. Sue, the WNBA was about 5 years old, I think, when you were drafted number 1. What was that like for you? Does it feel like in the time that you've been in the league, which is, I think this is going to be your 16th year, right? Or are we on 17 now?
I think it's 17 now.
17.
Get confused.
Yeah. How differently do you maybe view the league or your role? I mean, not your role, because that's clearly very different, but the league itself from when you were drafted in 2002 to where it is now. Did you expect to be playing as long as you are?
Oh, I don't know what I expected in terms of length. I didn't really think I expected anything or thought anything. It's just kind of been going. And now I'm like classic, like someone will be like, 10 years ago. And I'm like, you guys weren't in the league 10 years ago. It's just me now. Like, I'm around all these players who have no idea about the early parts of it. And when I look back on when I first got drafted, those first couple of years, I mean, God, I think so differently of the league now. I mean, first and foremost, the product itself is by far the best it's ever been. Like the talent on the court, the individual talent, which is going to lead to team talent,
and competitiveness and parity and all that good stuff. It's the best. I mean, we've had now 3 years in a row, like epic playoffs where they're exciting and it's coming down to, decisive games and last second shots and all that kind of good stuff. So that's the good news when I think of the basketball, like just the on the court part. It's grown so much. And I mean, that's just survival of the fittest, right? 12 teams, 12 roster spots. You have to be really, really good to make a WNBA team. There's no other league like that, except for maybe Megan. And then, but when I think of off the court, and I think back on my early years, I'm like, oh my God, they put me in a dress and they made me say, I'm not as innocent as you think I am. What the, like, it's some of the stuff looking back that they were trying to push and sell. And like, you're young. Like now I know, I mean, like Megan, I bet you could agree to this. It's like, you'll be doing a photo shoot or something. And the photographer or someone who doesn't know soccer movements or basketball movements, they'll be like, okay, now, like put your hand up here and do that. And you're like, no. That's going to look dumb. Like, I'm not doing
No, I'm not doing that.
No, hell no. Like, I know what this is going to look like. It's going to be bad. But back then, like, I didn't know. Like, I was like, okay, like, sex sells. Let's do this. And that was just not the right approach at all. And I think our league, like, 5 years, 6 years later, suffered for it and kind of took a dip. And now hopefully we're going to get back on track and figure out what works best.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that Basketball, a Love Story showed some of those early clips of, somebody in leather pants crawling across the hood of a car. And the Diana Taurasi in like the halter top is just so uncomfortable to watch.
If you don't think I don't have that picture in my photo album, like ready to send to her whenever she's acting like an a-hole, like,
oh my God,
believe me, that is like the best ammunition I have. It's terrible.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting, too, is, in talking about women's sports, a lot of times we'll use the U.S. women's national soccer team as this example of what it can be like to have cultural capital, to be something cool. The runs to the World Cup and the Olympics, I hosted some of the USWNT watch parties in Chicago and Lincoln Park with like hundreds and hundreds of fans, screaming their heads off, dressed up, like loving this and living and dying for U.S. women's soccer. But the professional league is sort of in a less sturdy place than the WNBA. So it's really the lens through which you're looking at it. But I guess, like, let's start with you, Sue. When you talk to Megan about what it's like to be a part of something that is sort of universally beloved and not really degraded, and then you talk about the WNBA that's still fighting off these a-holes who feel the need to criticize, what do you guys talk about? Do you talk about how that was accomplished or how you might get there as a WNBA?
I mean, we've talked about it, to the death.
To nausea.
I don't know that, I don't know that we have, like, any exact answers. And it's tough. It's like you can kind of, as it pertains to the WNBA, you can kind of talk around these larger issues, these deep-seated issues, and talk about, we're not marketed right, or, we need the investment from this, we need the investment from that. But I think part of it is our league is very gay and very black, and it's hard to avoid that, and people don't want to hear that, but it is a part of it. And, are there other aspects where, I know this is something Adam Silver has said where young girls aren't playing basketball as much anymore. Like, what is that? Like, why is that happening? Yes, you can definitely dissect that. And there's tons of things you can dissect and talk about. And again, we have. And it's still, at the end of the day, we don't know. I think, and Megan, you probably talk to us even better, like, with the national team, they do have, and we kind of sense this a little bit with our national team, there's the USA part, right? It's like you're cheering for your country.
For sure.
That's similar to maybe what, if I were to compare it in basketball, like what I feel about, or the vibe I get from a UConn fan versus in the WNBA. Like UConn, it's like, no, I'm a UConn fan. Like they don't care who's there, what's happening. They're fans of the school. Same with the country. So when you're wearing USA, it kind of changes things a little bit.
Yeah. Megan, what would you say about that? Because I do think there's this patriotism aspect of it. There's also, in a lot of ways, those issues of it being aesthetically pleasing, right? Most of the women aren't significantly taller than the average man. It's maybe a game that not every guy plays pickup and thinks he's going to beat you in. And the aesthetics of watching, we'll get to that. The aesthetics of watching soccer too, though. I enjoy watching women's soccer more. You guys flop less. You don't need the stupid magic spray. that apparently fixes everything. So I don't know why somebody doesn't use the stupid magic spray on every injury. But yeah, I mean, how does that feel for you, especially in watching Sue and the WNBA deal with that bullshit?
Well, it's interesting because it's like, I feel like a lot of people approach this problem with like, wow, that is so complicated. We just can't figure it out. I'm like, no, it's not. Seems pretty obvious what's happening. I think it's just what Sue said. Like, unless somebody can come up with a better example of just kind of blatant like sexism, and it kind of seems like that's what it is. It's like anytime, any of these women are on social media post anything, it's like the kitchen comments. Like what?
Oh,
like, well, really, we're still there with the kitchen comments? Like, what are we talking about? So I feel like it's a lot more simple than maybe people want to make it, just because that's uncomfortable to make it that simple, and it's pretty clear what's happening. I think with the national team, just as Sue said, it's this whole sort of traveling circus type. I mean, everybody loves to be patriotic. We've always been branded as sort of girl next door kind of team in general, not just the stars of the team, but for the most part, the whole team in general has been sort of branded that, and it's sort of easy to get on board, and it's been easy for marketers to kind of make sense of it. It's just kind of basically the status quo. So I feel like authenticity is always the sort of best practice in marketing. Doesn't, maybe even if you're sort of marketing a new idea, if it's coming off as real, then it makes sense and it resonates with people. And I think, sort of alluding to what Sue said early on the WNBA, just trying to fit this sort of square peg instead of just owning it all and saying this is who we are and this is why our stories are interesting and this is why you should watch. If you kind of try to make it something else when people are already resistant to it, then it's not going to resonate with them at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Sue, you were chiming in because this is something you and I have talked about before, this idea of, every guy thinks that he's the equivalent of an NBA player. And if you set up a camera at his pickup game at the Y, people would be amazed by how good he is, not realizing that like every other play is a turnover or a whiffed air ball.
I just haven't gotten my shot yet.
Right, exactly.
Well,
I'm heating up. But you've talked about the idea of like, if every guy's like, I can dunk on you, you're like, great, I'm better at the game of basketball. And I think in talking to Candace Parker, it certainly feels like a younger generation is growing up with this more normalized idea of women's basketball and the WNBA. Does it feel like that's changing at least, despite the fact that social media is still full of a-holes?
Yeah, I mean, you bring that up. So it's like, listen, I'm like, social media and I have a love-hate. Like, I get it, and I like some aspects, and of course, like everyone else, I hate some aspects. And, every now and then, like, even with this Denver Nuggets job, it's like, things got posted. I mean, what do you think? There was idiots who are like, oh, she got hired for head chef? Like, stupid stuff like that. And you're just like, wow. But then, I get curious, and I'll be like, all right, let me see this guy's profile. So I'll, like, click on something. And a lot of times, what scares me is that it's like a teenage boy. Like a high school kid. And that to me is like a little alarming because I do agree with Candace. And I do think that there's a large percentage of the younger population that are watching women's basketball, seeing it. It is normal. They don't necessarily compare themselves. It's a part of the same way that the NBA is a part of our lives or whatever sports league. It's a part of their life and they view it in a normal way, I guess. So, but then every now and then you do click on that profile and you see it's a young kid and you're like, oh God, he's going to be 30 one day and doing the same thing, So that does kind of scare me, but it is, they size you up. It's because everyone thinks they're a basketball player. Even my own friends at times. So like have these comments about it. Like, oh, I could average this in the WNBA. And I'm like, dude, really? Like that's how you think of it? But he would never, I don't think they would ever say that to Megan because they didn't necessarily play soccer, Right. So that's kind of where the basketball, I think, does take a little bit more of the hit.
I've always thought that it feels natural and comfortable because everyone's just picked up a basketball and shot before, and then they've got these like delusions of grandeur, and then part of that is too, I think, like you mentioned, the way the sport started and some very outspoken critics. I had Rebecca Lobo on the pod, and I have to ask you guys, and it obviously wouldn't be a male writer, but if you met a female sports writer and your relationship started by her saying that she slept with 1,000 women because they were all napping their way through a game. Would you ever marry them? I'm so impressed by Rebecca Lobo being able to forgive and move on. I'm like, I would be angry at that person for life.
Did Steve write that? I don't even think I know this story.
Yes. That's how they met.
That's
he
how
wrote
they
a
met?
story without ever really watching it, and he claimed he went to a game and he slept with this many thousand women. It was more than Wilt Chamberlain because they all took a nap together during a boring WNBA game. And then she ended up telling him, like, I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna take you, I'm gonna show you how fun it is and what a great product it is. And they fell in love.
I know the engagement story. I don't think I knew that part. How did I not know this part? Yeah, that's
She's
tough.
a bigger woman than I am.
You're a better researcher.
Much bigger.
Let's talk about you guys meeting because it's kind of actually rare, I think, Megan, to be with the same team for so long, since 2013, to be with the Seattle Reign and with Sue so long with the Storm. How long into kind of both playing in that city did you guys meet each other, and how early was it, sparks flying?
We really didn't meet each other until, was it 2016? Yeah, we had sort of been, I think we had both been to games and done that, but we had never actually really met or had a conversation at all. The first time we really met was at one of those big Olympic media day kind of car wash things in LA. We don't have the same agent, but we're sort of in the same agency, and my agent used to be her agent. So whatever, I was talking to him, and he was like, "Oh, have you ever met Sue?" She was walking by, and I made some stupid joke, which I still regret to this day.
Such a dumb joke.
It was so dumb. It was like we're in this whole media thing. So you go from bop to bop to bop to bop. So you're done up. You makeup and hair, and sometimes you're in regular clothes, sometimes you're in your uniform. So she was in her uniform, with her hair down, and I made some dumb joke after. It's as soon as she walked away, I was like, "Damn it!
What did you
what
say?"
Was that? I was basically like, "Oh, are you going to a game?" And it was just so dumb.
And I was like, "No."
Yeah, I'm like, well,
you know what I'm
There
doing.
goes that. Yeah, she was kind of and it was sort of in passing as we were going to. We kind of just both walked our opposite ways. I was like, oh God, well, that was embarrassing. And then we didn't really meet again until the Olympics. My team didn't do very well, bombed out way early. So there was a few of us that just decided to stay just because we were already down there, and we kind of had this in-between week before we had to get back. So we were going to different events and kind of hanging out in sort of peripheral same groups, again with the agency. A couple of our agents were there, so I was kind of hanging out with them, and then they were going to the games and stuff. And, sort of met there, and then not until we were back in Seattle a few weeks later or so did we start talking. A bit down the road, yeah.
Who invited who on the date? Or did you make it sound like you were just going to hang?
Megan, go ahead. You've already taken the whole story.
Sorry, go. Get right in
No.
there.
That was actually, I'm totally deferring. Go ahead.
We actually ended up going to dinner when we got back from Rio. Again, our agent was in town. They're like the matchmakers, I guess, in all of this. Ended up going to dinner, but I was dating someone at the time, so that was, part of it. And then I guess just started talking a bit after that. My relationship had ended, and then there she was, looking all cute.
So, Megan, you came out publicly in 2012. Why then? And was most of your family and friends already aware? Was this something that you were keeping from everyone?
No, I don't think that. I don't think I kept it from anyone, actually. I think it's like
they had to tell her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, all right, I have to announce this, or no? Is everyone good? Or
I know. I didn't have this struggling story. Oftentimes when I get asked about it, and obviously because a lot of people struggle, very long and very hard with it. But I didn't really. I didn't even have these moments in high school where I was like, oh, maybe I'm gay. I didn't think about it all. Looking back, I mean, major oversight. But it wasn't until college, and then as soon as I figured it out for myself, I was like, oh, great, this is awesome. I'm out. I'm gay. So that wasn't really an issue. I told my parents and my family, and they were fine. And then it wasn't, I guess that was like early in college, and then I came out when I was 26. So everyone in my life had already known. I guess the reason why it started to become sort of like I felt like I had to lie about it or sort of like omit things to like not come out. Not because I wasn't comfortable, but I was like, oh, am I coming out? But then it was like,
is this the moment I want to do it in this like sideline interview?
Yeah,
where they ask
and then it was
about
like
something randomly.
and then I was like, I was like, why am I not out? This is like weird that I'm not out because I want to be out.
In the sport of soccer and in general, on the teams that you were on, was it completely open arms, no concern about how this would affect either your brand or your teammates? Obviously, there's very publicly been a member of the U.S. Women's National Team that's been open about not wanting to participate in Pride Days. Was there any concern, or was it that, everybody already knew, so you felt accepted?
Yeah, I didn't feel any sort of pushback at all. I mean, I'm sure that there have been players and are players and will continue to be players that sort of in their heart of hearts feel differently. But I think on the whole, our team has always tried to be pretty progressive and open and have that kind of inclusive environment. So that was kind of a non-issue at that point.
Sue, Megan forced you to come out publicly.
He did. So that ultimated up real quick.
And she made you pose naked with her like right away just to make sure that.
Oh, God, so pushy. Yeah,
let's talk about, so 2017 for you, and one of the biggest, first things everyone saw was the cover of the Body issue, the first gay couple to be on the cover. Why 2017 for you? And because you spoke earlier about some of the, stereotypes of the WNBA, was there a fear of fitting into something that people had criticized the league for?
Good question. So the why, it's like we can joke and say, Megan forced me. But the truth is, it's like when I started dating Megan, I kind of knew, like, okay, this is someone who is out. She is open. So in a lot of ways, I knew, what I was getting into, for lack of a better way of saying it. So I was already comfortable. In a lot of ways, I think I did come out in large part because of Megan, but there was always in the back of my mind, probably for not like a crazy long time, but I would say for like a good 2 years prior to meeting Megan, I was like, why don't I just come out? Because to what Megan was saying, it's like, it just makes things so much easier now. Like now that I have, everyone knows I don't have to like, when maybe you're meeting someone for the first time, like in a business type setting, and maybe they're asking you, oh, are you dating anyone? I don't know. That probably wouldn't happen, but you get what I'm saying. And
right.
Then you have to, when you're not out, you have to like, you have to basically have all these little come outs along the way. Well, you could just do one big one and then call it a day and then it's over. So for a while I was wanting to do it, but I just couldn't, I don't know, I just didn't, and I could never find the right way to do it and whatnot. But then when I started dating Megan, I kind of knew that day was probably going to come, and then it did, and it wasn't difficult or hard, and I never struggled with it growing up either. Maybe like at the very start, like initially, like the first time I kind of realized was probably in college. And yeah, at that point, because like it was, the late 90s, early 2000s, it was a little different, even within my own team. And obviously now, people know that some of those women are also gay. So it's kind of funny that all of us then were kind of being like, oh, that person's gay. Oh, my God, like talking about it. But that's just like what it was. Like that's like what the climate, I guess, was socially and how you talked about it. So, yeah, there was definitely some early on like, I think I'm gay and I don't want to be. This sucks. But that quickly went away. And you bring up the WNBA and being in the WNBA and, obviously in terms of like my peers and being on the team and going through the season and our fan base, I didn't not come out because of that. It never prevented me. Like I really never thought to myself, oh, I'm going to lose this sponsorship deal. I didn't, because at that point, a lot of people were starting to come out and you could see it wasn't that big of a deal even. I think you just, at some point, it just comes down to you and when's right for you. And for whatever reason, it wasn't right until I was 36. I have no idea. Megan was like, 26. For me, it took a little bit longer.
Were your friends and family aware for most of your life?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like the only people I feel like I was actually coming out to were like reporters and,
strangers.
The casual, strangers basically. Like the people who are going to be writing about that kind of thing, like everybody, there was nobody who read that article and that knew me for longer than 5 seconds that was shocked or didn't know or it came out of nowhere. No, not at all.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, most people aren't going to ask about dating. I, of course, welcome Elena Deladon to Chicago when she gets drafted. We go get Chicago deep dish. And just as a tall woman and as her coming to Chicago, I'm like, oh, you're in my city. You're going to love it. The men are so tall, Midwest, corn-fed. And then like I just didn't know what I did. I didn't want to assume, but I didn't because I didn't want to ask either. I know. So then when she came out, I had her on the pod and I'm like, you made me look like such an idiot. You were like, yeah, great. That sounds good. Yeah. And I tried to set her up with this guy that worked at Nike. She's like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Hey, listen, you went out of your way to take out a draft pick who was new to a city. So whatever. Everything else after that doesn't even matter. I'll give you props for that.
All right, good. I will forgive myself then. Let's talk about the body issue. What was the reaction and was there any fear at all, whether it's just about being naked or your family or anybody else? Maybe start with you, Megan.
No, there was no fear. I feel like if you agree to it, if you are willing to say yes to do the body issue, then once you get there, you're sort of already the kind of person who's not going to be too shy about dropping rope. No, the fear is always just that they pick a picture that you don't like because you don't get to pick what you want. They sort of curate the whole thing for all the athletes. So it's like, you want to get the one that you want, which goes back to what Sue was saying on photo shoots of basically if you see something, say something. If you feel like you look weird in it and if you don't want it to go to print, don't ever snap the photo because you just never know what's going to happen. But mostly it's just, making sure that we looked good and looked good together and had all the bits covered.
That's right. Sue, same for you?
Yeah. I mean, I joke, it's like, at this point, I've been in so many locker rooms, taking so many showers. It's like, I don't care if I'm naked around people. It doesn't, there's the initial, when you're first out there and they're like, okay, it's time. Got to take that robe off. There's okay. But then
and
after,
there's not usually cameras in showers, so that's part of it.
That's very true. That's very true. But after that, even during a break, they're like, do you want your robes back? We're like, no, let's just keep going. We don't even who cares? Let's get this over.
Then you just want to get the shot going. You don't want to be there for 10 hours.
Yeah. But I loved that. I remember you guys talking about sort of bugging each other about nutrition and working out beforehand to make sure you both looked your best. And that Sue is always the one that has to nag Megan about just eat it. You're going to be fine. We'll get a burger in a couple months. Is this everyday life or just prepping for the body issue?
I mean, it's pretty much every day. I was sneaking bars and sneaking half sandwiches at practice before I got home. She was so good and so strict. She has so much more discipline than I do.
I was also so cranky. It was by the end I was like, I am ready to be eating whatever I want. I am over this.
We didn't go on a crazy diet, but we do.
It was a little different though.
We do eat very healthy, and it's pretty in the grand scheme, it is pretty strict generally. So it's then when you start taking other stuff out, I was like, what are we going to drop? There's nothing to drop.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
I have to keep performing. There's nothing to drop.
It's that's what it was. It was just a little less.
Yeah,
it was just a little less than the normal. Oh no, we were supplementing in other ways.
Right.
We had carb drinks that we would take that were just for training. I mean, it was working, but it's we were just eating just a little bit less than normal, which is already I feel we eat. I actually think our regular diet is actually it's a lot. It's just not necessarily the good stuff. It's not a pie of pizza. It's not this. Right. It's not that. But it's a lot of volume. But this was just a little bit less, where it was I could have had 2 plates of that easy or 3 plates of that, but I'm just on the one. But I was definitely the enforcer.
That's every time I've Googled the Whole30, I'm like, I'm going to try that Whole30. And then I'm like, let me remind myself of what I want to do. And then I'm like, wait a minute, I can't even have beans. And I haven't been eating meat lately. So I'm like, all right, never mind. And then every time, a couple months later, I'm like, let me try. No, that's not going to work.
Whole30 looks so hard.
Yeah.
It's so hard. Oh my God.
Have either of you guys ever dated a non-athlete? And is it easier to have somebody who has to go take ice baths and worry about nutrition and care about their body in this way? Or is it nice sometimes to have a counterpart that that doesn't stress you out with the exact same stuff that you have to worry about?
I think we both have dated non-athletes, and I personally think it's easier. I hear what you're saying that, at times maybe it's nice to not have the exact same stress happening at the exact same time in two people. But I think it's nice to have somebody who understands like completely. And so while you're feeling stressed, even if they're simultaneously stressed, there's also like an element where they're like, no, like, cause they get it. And they're like, no, like tomorrow will be better. Or, just come on, just stay on this diet. Like the burgers in a week, just wait, just stay, so it's someone who totally gets it. I think I prefer it. Don't want to speak.
It is. Yeah, it is. It is easier, I think, because you're kind of like your priorities are the same, and while your stresses are the same, and that can be overwhelming sometimes if both people are like going through a stressful moment or having a meltdown. Usually, you're not doing that at the same time, so you can kind of buffer each other in a way. And a lot of times, our stresses or breakdowns are like totally irrational ones where you're just like having this moment for whatever reason. And it's like, you feel like the world is ending, but it's really just not. You just need to go like do your workout and get rid of the guilt that you're feeling until you do it. So I find that we sort of can like motivate and buffer and understand and encourage sort of all at the same time. And it's nice to have your priorities the same. If we're like, want to during the week be super boring and just sit around and eat healthy and work out and relax, then both people are sort of feeling that at the same time.
Yeah. What about travel? Because, Sue, as if you aren't busy enough winning WNBA championships and making like just solo highlight reels mid-game, you just took a job with the Denver Nuggets in basketball operations associate in the front office. How much travel is that going to be? And what are you most excited about in terms of taking on this new gig?
So I don't have to move there or anything like that, which is great. And then like immediately I sat down with my schedule with, what could be my potential Denver Nuggets schedule. Cause I will have to go there, probably like what'll turn out to be once a month for like X amount of days. Not sure. Could be 4, could be more, just kind of figuring that out. And then there are aspects of it where you go scout. So maybe I go watch, this team versus that team in wherever. So, but like I said, immediately sat down with my schedule, that potential schedule, and then Megan's schedule. And it actually, the way I think this all goes is as it pertains to both of our schedules, like sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. You have to be okay either way. Like last summer, 2 summers ago, our schedules worked out perfectly. And then this past summer, it was a little harder. We were kind of, one was home, the other was away, and vice versa. But this actually worked out pretty well, so I'm super excited about that. That's just like an added bonus. For the most part, when I have to go to Denver, Megan will be gone. So it really works out. And I think we do a good job. We have like a synced calendar, and we try to do as best we can to make things work. And if, even if one has downtime, where they might want to just like chill at home, but the other is somewhere in America doing something, we'll try to go. And be with that person. So I think we do a pretty good job. Like I said, you have to kind of take, I try not to put you on blast, Megan, but she'll get a little more like, wait, what? We're going to be away. And I'm like, listen, last week we were here together. Next week we're not. We got to take the good with the bad. Like, this is just what it is.
I know. I'm like, that's not helping.
Yeah.
That's not helping me right now.
I try to get like as worked out.
Yeah, you're better at that than I'm not.
Yeah, but it kind of works.
Yeah. It's tough with with anybody, but when you guys have so much travel and international travel and otherwise too. Sue, I'm not pushing you out of the WNBA because you need to play forever and never leave us. And I said at the W Summit that you're like RBG. I'm just gonna feed you kale and make sure
I heard that, by the way. Thank you.
Hyperbaric chamber.
Protect at all costs.
But as you are entering season 17 and as you're taking on gigs outside of it, how much are you thinking about what's next and what you'd want to do next?
Oh, yeah. I've been thinking about that for a long time. I totally respect that as an athlete, like, this is your identity. It's like more than your job. And I know this goes for a lot of people in their jobs. It's more. It's your identity. It's what I've been doing since I was like 6 years old. And I understand, and I quickly did once I stopped going overseas, which was like 4 years ago, I believe, maybe more now. I was like, I need to figure out what I'm going to do, because if one day comes and I can't play anymore and I have to retire and it suddenly stops and I'm just like, now what? I'm going to be in a lot of trouble. Like I can sense it. I would be in a lot of trouble. So I've gone out of my way to try to see like what's out there for me. What am I interested in? And this is just another step in that direction with the Denver Nuggets. And, you know, I've said before, it's I just kind of had coaching and front office stuff like GM and all that. That was just something that I thought in my own mind, like I just put it in its own little corner of I can't really try it till I'm done. But then this opportunity presented itself where they made it really easy for me to do both. And that's what made it so easy to take. And I'm basically just going to be learning. That's really all this is. It's about learning and kind of developing, helping whenever I can. But obviously I'm very new to this. So it was kind of a no-brainer. But yeah, I've been thinking about this for like 4 or 5 years now.
What's left to accomplish in basketball? What's the goal now?
So it's interesting you ask that because in a lot of ways, I've said this, I would, if I stopped today, I mean, I'd be completely satisfied with my career. Like I've many regrets along the way, you know, a game here, a situation there, but for the most part, I can look back and have no regrets. And not a lot of people can say that. And I'm obviously very proud of that. And, I don't know, just not a lot of people can say that. And I know how amazing it is. But with that, because I'm still able, you know, you do find these, I don't know, mini motivations. So for me right now, it's two things. It's one, continue to help our younger players, you know, and not just on my own team, you know, I'm part of the executive committee with the CBA, or with our players union, sorry. And so I know that I can be a part of helping, you know, this league grow and helping these younger players. Specifically with the Storm, it's about on-court. I want to help them as much as I can and leave this franchise in even better hands. So it continues to be one of the top franchises in the league. And then the second thing is, I mean, when you win, you know, it's funny. People don't necessarily talk about this. It's like you win and that moment's amazing. And it happens like when the horn goes off. So from like the horn going off until the next morning, that is like really the only time you're like truly enjoying that championship. And there's no other moment like it. But we're talking like 12 to 24 hours. And yeah, don't get me wrong. You have parades. They're amazing. But there's nothing like those 12 hours. And those are addicting. And it's like you just want to feel that. And there's no other way to replace that feeling. So because I am still able, knock on wood, it's like I just want to feel that as much as I can until until I hang them up and I can never feel it again.
I love that. That's awesome. What about you, Megan? You are significantly younger than Sue, which I'm sure never comes up. But what's left to accomplish for you? What are your goals?
Well, now that I've been dating Sue, all my accomplishments look a lot smaller and less impressive, as my mom pointed out. She was like, wow, well, you didn't do very much, did you? There's a lot left to accomplish. Similar to what Sue said, there's part of it that's just winning is addicting and it's fun. And it kind of always keeps you coming back. And obviously being able to be on the national team, we have a lot of the winning and a lot of that feeling. And we're always kind of in the mix competing for championships. I mean, in the short term, World Cup is next summer. Definitely want to win that again. I've lost a World Cup and won a World Cup, and the latter is certainly much better and lasts maybe a little bit shorter than the Sting, but it's just such a great feeling to actually accomplish what you set out to do. And then Tokyo after that, hopefully keep playing after that. And then I think after that sort of reassess how I feel and where I am with my body and in my career and what I want. But I'm definitely wanting to play as long as possible. And I think sometimes we sort of look at it in at least my world in these like 4-year cycles. So it's like we have World Cup coming up and then we have Olympics and then it's kind of like, oh, well, you're going to be this old. And then to get to the next one, you almost look in these like 4-year blocks, which can be kind of hard. So I'm going to try to just stick to the 1 year, keep it going. And as long as I'm enjoying myself and having fun and able to play the way that I want to, then I'll continue to play. And then as Sue said, like I feel like you would just, not be very smart to not have an eye on the next stage, even just to help prepare yourself. I feel like emotionally and mentally it's going to be hard to step away and then you want to find something else. So just trying to dip my toe in different things and not necessarily set up things for the future, but at least kind of have an idea of where you want to go, what you like, what you don't like, and start to build those relationships.
You have an apparel company, right, that you started?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And do either of you have aspirations, like something? I know, Sue, you said you've always had outside interests, and basketball is your identity, but there's also more to you. Obviously, I see both of you giving back to your sport and remaining connected to it, but are there things completely unrelated to sport that both of you are like, when I'm finally done, maybe I'll give that a shot?
Yeah, I hope so for me. I definitely want to stay involved in some sense, but yeah, a whole different world sounds really sort of intriguing, one that you can just kind of dive into, and it doesn't really matter what you did on the soccer field. You kind of explore different parts of yourself and grow different parts. I mean, being an athlete, I think sometimes you challenge yourself in so many ways, and it's so difficult, but only in this sort of one silo. And I think kind of the other ones can get a little neglected or sort of lost in the mix sometimes. So, and it's hard to really dig into anything else when you're still playing and all your focus has to go there. So I kind of have that hope and that dream, maybe something in fashion or creating a business or something like that.
So everything Megan said, it's like I agree with, and it's like you do want to develop these other parts of you. And then I have all these friends who are kind of in the corporate world, and I hear some of their stories, and I'm like, no, thanks. Like,
Yeah,
sports is wild. Sports is wild, but I don't know. And maybe
it's awesome.
But I'm totally biased, and I've grown up and lived this way for so long. But it's like, I don't know if I can't even think of an example that would be funny right now. But if the bus is at 3, like we're there at 3. And then you hear your friends tell stories like, yeah, we had a meeting at 3 and this guy came in at 3:45. Like, what? Like, I can't even, I'm like, what rules do you guys follow? I don't like these rules.
Accountability.
Yeah. It's so different. Or my sister tells me stories. She's like a legal recruiter in New York. She'll tell me a story about maybe somebody stepping on somebody else's toes. And I'm like, what? Like, if a teammate did that to me, I'd be like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Yeah. That kind of thing. So, and she'll probably kill me for bringing that up, but whatever. So that kind of thing where I'm like, wait, I think maybe sports is where I'm supposed to be. Like, this is, so I don't know.
Megan, I wonder, you were one of the most prominent white athletes to kneel along with Colin Kaepernick back in September of 2016. And then the next game, they played the anthem before the players came out. And the Washington Spirit said you hijacked a tradition several days before September 11th, which wasn't a great use of words by them.
Use of words.
And then a couple days later, you knelt in a national game versus Thailand, and U.S. Soccer made a statement demanding that players stand. There's a lot of activism on your part outside of your sport. Is there a part of you that at least when you're done participating and done being a member of these teams feels like you will be even more outspoken because there isn't anything holding you back?
I don't know if I'll be more outspoken. I've been pretty outspoken, I guess, all along. But yeah, there is less, I guess, direct in some way. I think I'll always be. I think that's just a part of who I am, and just seeing, since I've, in my career and the things that I've spoken out about against or for. And being able to see the impact that has had, the conversations that has started just by saying it, just by being willing to talk about it, I think is really powerful. So I can't imagine that I'll ever sort of abandon that. But yeah, always trying to find, more ways to, ways to do it more effectively, and to just continue to have that conversation, because it's not a conversation that everyone wants to have. So you get a lot of people deflecting one way or the other, or just sort of not wanting to have it at all, which can be difficult. But I definitely see that being a part of my future.
It's hard because a lot of women's athletes, WNBA in particular, have been on the forefront of activism and don't really get the credit for it the way that men do. But at the same time, I think there's higher stakes for men, right? We saw it with Colin Kaepernick, or we've seen it with the NFL. Donald Trump's not talking about you kneeling. So there's this balance of, do you feel more like you're held back in terms of you wish that you had the platform and the power to do what, say, a LeBron James does when he speaks out? Or is there also a bit of protection and cover in that you're able to reach a lot of people, but maybe the stakes aren't as high if people don't agree with you?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I mean, I wish I had a bigger platform to talk about the things that I feel like are important, and to make a bigger impact. Sometimes that's, I've struggled with that a little bit of like, you're saying all these things and then it's like, what do you do from there? Because you're not a full-time activist and I don't have a whole like team around me or millions of dollars to, do what LeBron is doing, which is incredible with his school and just, the platform that he has with his production company and just him being willing to say that much. So sometimes it's hard because it's like, okay, well, what's the next step? What's sort of the action step to keep it moving? But I think all the voices are important no matter what. I think all of the, maybe the smaller voices are empowering LeBron to do what he's doing and sort of vice versa.
Sue, the WNBA actually kind of adopted activism this year as, part of the ticket sales go to various nonprofits and groups that support causes that the WNBA stands behind. How did you react to that being, that's incredible support from your league in terms of anything that you want to speak out on, feeling sort of supported?
Yeah. Well, obviously it didn't necessarily always start that way. A couple years ago when a lot of the teams were wearing Black Lives Matter T-shirts. Obviously, it's been well documented that there were some issues and the league was going to fine us and all that stuff. But so I think when you start from there and then you fast forward 2 years and now look, they started that initiative. They're the ones that brought it to the table. It's nice to feel supported in your workplace in this league because this league is very much a partnership. So it's great to feel supported. And I think for us as players, as women, female athletes, we're so used to fighting. It's like we have to fight every day in our own little world. So I think for us to kind of extend that and speak up on issues that we feel, are just important and need to be brought to the forefront and fought for, we're like, okay, cool. Like, let's do this, because it's, I think, just a part of, unfortunately, in a way, a part of our nature, because we do just have to, we're fighting all the time just for our own respect. So I think it's really natural for us to feel that way and speak up on things. We don't hold our tongue. And it was nice to have the league come around, and then see the value in that and to support it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is helpful to have management on your side.
Yeah.
Or at least vaguely supportive of you, or at least not outwardly unsupportive of you.
Yeah, exactly. You mentioned you've been kind of fighting for your life and always advocating for yourself. The sort of LGBTQ stuff is newer for you, Sue. Megan's been, busting down doors with that for several years now, but you were just named to the Out 100 for 2018, the most prominent LGBTQ people. And what's that been like for you, sort of adopting that new addition to all of the work that you do of being a role model and a speaker on that issue?
Yeah, so it's been amazing. I mean, it's been kind of cool. The interesting part is that on one side of it, I feel like I haven't really changed much. I just kind of said it,
right.
But what I'm doing in like my everyday life and beyond, or how I interact with people, that really hasn't changed. So I guess what I'm trying to say, it's like, it's nice to just kind of live your life, be a little more open, a little more honest about it, and see how that impacts people. So the second leg of it is just seeing the impact on people. And obviously through conversations with Megan and a bunch of other people, but really Megan, I see the value and the importance of that, to come out, to have people come out in the sports world, to normalize it, to, just make it something that isn't as faux pas or unknown. And then also, like I said, to have the impact, whether it's, a 12-year-old coming up to you and thanking you because, and this literally happens, thanking you because now they can live their truth. Or I've even had older couples, like in the 50s and 60s, be like, we decided to get married because, you're living your life. Like, we want to live our life. So it's been pretty incredible to see what can happen when you just kind of tell people the truth. And that's really what it is. So I feel like I'm still living the same, but now I'm definitely seeing that just in doing that, you can have a huge impact.
Absolutely. I know you guys got to go, but before you go, you do have to do the one thing that everybody does and nobody expects.
Didn't expect a kind of Spanish Inquisition. Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition.
That's right. It's the Spanish Inquisition. Number one, Sue, what's the natural talent you wish you were gifted with?
Oh, I wish I could play the piano.
Good one. Megan?
Ooh, I wish I had a photographic memory.
Oh, that would be super helpful. Yeah.
Yeah.
With sports and otherwise. Although in arguments, Sue would get really annoyed if you.
I know.
She basically does
I already have the photographic memory.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. She would just be on my level now.
Like, remember last week when you said this, but you said this? And I was like, God, I don't remember, but now you're saying it, so it's like, I kind of have to trust you, but then you could be
my husband gets really
argument.
annoyed. I have a very good memory, and he'll be like, why do you bring that up? I'm like, because it's what happened.
I remember.
And I remember it, so now I'm going to use it against you in this argument.
What, am I not supposed to bring it up?
Number 2, Megan, what's your desert island album? You can only have one.
Oh, dear.
It's a really unfair question.
Oh, my gosh. Desert Island. Maybe like a Fleetwood Mac album.
Nice.
It's like good listening.
Yeah. Sue?
I mean, Notorious B.I.G., Ready to Die. Hit play and go. Without a doubt.
And you're on a desert island, so at any moment you could really, Number 3, Sue, if you could switch lives with anyone for a day, who would it be?
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. That is really difficult right now. Maybe like Michelle Obama.
Oh, good one.
Is that too easy? But I feel like that'd be cool.
No, that'd be amazing, especially right now because she's doing like a book tour and hanging out with cool people.
Yeah, no, I know.
Changing lives. I just saw her in Chicago with Oprah. It was amazing. Magical.
Yeah.
Megan?
Oh, well, since we already brought her up, maybe Ruth Bader. I mean, it's going to be tough. She's pretty old.
Yeah, it would be a different body experience for you, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. But just to I feel like I just want to sit as her in those chambers and just look at all the other people and be like, what is happening here? I got to really hold on.
Yeah. I think we'd all be down for you to change bodies with her because she'd be around a while. Megan, what's the most scared you've ever been?
Ooh, most scared.
I've had a couple recently. Some flying in bad weather, small planes flying in bad weather situations. We had last February, we had a tournament. We were playing in Columbus, and then we were coming to New Jersey for a game. Anyways, woke up, all the flights were canceled. So they're like, no worries, we have a charter, so we're going to take the charter. And I was like, well, what is different about the charter that is different than the commercial flights that aren't allowed to fly? And they're like, oh, we're leaving earlier, so we're going to beat the storm. Well, we left later, and we flew right into the heart of that thing. And I mean, my whole body was sweating. I was I got up out of my seat, oh my gosh. And it's given me a little bit of flight anxiety since then. Not a ton, but then I'm also well, if we go down, I'm going to die. And I fly a lot, so it's that. So there's that. It's these fleeting moments.
Yeah.
But that's probably the most scared I've been in a while. I didn't feel like we were going to crash, but it was just wow, this plane is all over the place.
Sue, what about you?
Aside from the near accident Megan and I almost got in the other day, it wasn't as dramatic as that sounds. That actually scared me. It was 2 days ago. But I joked that the Denver Nuggets was my first job, but I actually sold ice cream out of the carts at concerts one summer. And it wasn't gunpoint, it wasn't knife point or anything like that, but I got robbed essentially.
Oh, wow.
And when I tell the story now, Megan's heard the story numerous, I kind of make it seem no, I mean, they grabbed the money, but I could have caught them, but I couldn't because I couldn't leave the cart. But I was really scared. The whole experience was just frightening, and the way that they did it was a couple of, it was these 3 guys, and one of them was talking to me, and they were doing this, doing that, only to snatch all the money. Oh. Anyways, it was just an alarming experience. More so alarming and
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Sue,
violating.
5.
There we go.
Yeah, violating. Absolutely. It would feel like that for sure. Anytime someone does something that's evil to you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's very unsettling. Number 5, Sue, what's the most embarrassed you've ever been?
Oh God. I feel like I have a lot, and I've probably just blocked them out because they were so embarrassing. Oh, I can't think. I think this is kind of silly, but when I was younger, I don't know why this just popped in my head. I think I was like 12 or so. We were on a soccer tournament with my travel team, and I made some joke about a woman's weight, which is like so not cool, but I was 12. And I was in a pool with my teammates. I was like, oh my God, because this woman sat on our stuff. And I just made this bad, poor taste joke. And the girl was like, that's my mom. And it was.
No.
And that was just like terrible. I don't even know what made me think of this. It was awful. And so like to this day, I don't make those jokes. Let's put it that way. Learn the hard way. Learn my lesson.
Yes. All kids are jerks at some point. Megan, most embarrassed?
Oh, most embarrassed. It takes a lot for me to be embarrassed.
Yeah.
You know what? When we went to the White House after the World Cup, I was so excited to meet Obama. I was like, this is like a dream come true. This is once in a lifetime. This is going to be amazing. I don't know what was going on. I don't have allergies or anything, but like my face was so red for the whole time that we were at the White House. I was like, is there something in these walls that like bright red, and I was hot, and the whole thing, everyone's like, are you okay? I'm like, well, to be honest, no, I'm not, but don't make a big deal out of it. I'm going to get more red, and it's just going to be a scene when Obama comes in. It kind of was. It's like
those women who go on Say Yes to the Dress, and then they get hives because they're never on camera.
Yeah.
Like maybe it was just too awesome. Like your body couldn't handle it.
It was too much for me.
Number 6, Megan, what do you consider your biggest failure?
Oh, my biggest failure, man. That is hard. I guess as a team failure, losing the World Cup in 2011, that's probably the biggest one. I don't know if I have any other major life failures.
Sue?
So, I was talking about how I do like to keep a balance with like basketball and friends. And I do feel like majority of the time I've done a really good job, but I feel like I have failed in keeping touch with some people. Like that's something every now and then.
Mine. That's mine too.
I'm really bad at it. Can I change my most embarrassed one then? Because I thought of a better one.
Okay,
but
go
that's
for
definitely. It. Oh, I went to the ESPYs my rookie year of the WNBA, and I was in some shoes that were not easy to walk in. I had to walk down steps on the stage, and I kind of realized like in the moment like this probably, but it wasn't. Thank God there wasn't Twitter. I got back to my team. They were like, dude. Like,
did you
couldn't
fall,
walk in
or
those
did you
heels.
just look like an idiot?
No. I just looked like an idiot. And everybody, it was just like wobbly. It was kind of like that model on that one. Yeah.
Totally.
It was like wobbly. Yeah. I didn't fall, but it was very wobbly. That was like intensely embarrassing. But yeah, failure is just like, again, I feel like I've done okay, but I probably could have done better with some people in some aspects.
Yeah. My friend has a spreadsheet that he keeps, and he'll jot down in the spreadsheet when he calls somebody or sees them. And then every once in a while, if he knows he has a road trip or some free time, he'll go there and he'll find someone where it's been a long stretch and he'll just call them. And I think it's kind of like, it's very like business way to do it. But at the same time, it prevents you from just like, it makes you realize how long it's been maybe since you really connected with somebody. Totally. It's kind of a good idea. Number 7, Sue, what habit or quality do you think has contributed most to your success?
I think I can get very like OCD about stuff, and like I can obsess. But when it comes to basketball, like it allows me to focus. I can be like very focused. And I already want to change my answer. I think the real answer is that I always think I'm right, and it's to my detriment with like my social life. So like, you always think you're right. But on the basketball court, I just have, whether I'm right or wrong, in sports, whether you're right or wrong, sometimes as long as you're just doing it like with confidence and you're assertive, it actually doesn't matter. And so I think the fact that I always think I'm right and I kind of just play that way, like, no, we're doing this, I think has been a huge part
assertive,
of my success.
Decisive, yeah. It's good. Megan?
I think self-belief. I think that's probably like the thing that I look back and that has kind of like driven me the most, especially in the context of the national team. It's such a weird environment because it's like there's only 20 people and you're constantly pitted against each other and everyone else, and it's like this hyper competitive environment. I think it's easy a lot of times to whether you're, not starting or not playing well or, sort of out of favor, it's easy to start looking at everyone else and being like, wow, I'm better than her at this. I'm better, and it's like, that doesn't really matter. You have to be the best at yourself in whatever game you're going to bring. So kind of having that like undying, I guess, being aware of what you're good at as well, being sort of aware of the areas of your game that you excel and that you could be better than anyone else, and then kind of sticking to that and sort of making that fit within the team framework.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll say Megan has like crazy confidence in a good way as it pertains to soccer. Like, no, you do. I'm actually envious. There's parts of you where I'm like, dang, she just has like a way about her where she's like, no, I'm good at this. Like even when she was coming back from an injury, it was like, no. I just need to play. I'll be fine. Whereas like anyone else would have been like, oh God, I don't know. Like maybe I'm not that, like maybe I can't be who I was. She's like, no. I just need to play. I'll be fine. And it was just, I don't know. It was impressive.
Yeah, super impressive. And that's like the best quality ever. And I always tell younger people, you got to fake it until you make it in confidence. You just have to pretend like you feel that way and hope that you will yourself into it. Number 8, Megan, have you ever been in a fist fight?
I've never been in a fist fight, but there is this infamous story in college where, like, I think it was my sister. We were on the bus we were at Penn State. Like, maybe we just pulled up somewhere, getting off the bus, and I had like this headband on. And I actually did used to get embarrassed a lot when I was little because I didn't really know how to like process or handle my emotions, and I'm very emotional, so it would just like overwhelm me right away. So it's like trickled into college a little bit and probably still trickling around. But she like snapped my headband like in front of everyone. And I was sitting down. She was like in the aisle. And I just immediately like uppercutted her in the stomach. And she was so pissed. Yeah. It was one of those things. She just looked at me like, we're in public, so I'm not going to beat your ass right now. But she didn't talk to me for like hours. Wow. I was like, oh my God. As soon as I did, I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Yeah. So that's kind of my only fist fight.
Yeah.
No, I've never been in one.
Wow.
I've been in verbal altercations, but never a physical.
It's good.
Fist fight.
Proud of you. Violence is never the answer. Number 9, Sue, what's the thing about yourself you'd most like to improve?
Probably that I think I'm always right. I find myself having to, no, I'm not kidding. I find myself having to, I love it in basketball, but in life, it's not always the most pleasant to be around. And I like arguing for like the sport of it. Mm-hmm. And not everybody does that for the sport.
Have you seen my Twitter feed? I always think I'm right. It's great for my job. Not that great for my social life. So, you and I, simpatico here.
Yeah. So anyways, I wish at times as it pertains to like people that are like my friends and who I love and enjoy being around, I wish I didn't jump to like, I'm always right. Let's argue. But I'm doing it for sport. It's fun for me. And I get that it's not always fun for everybody else.
Right. Totally. Megan?
I wish that I was more like organized, and I wish I was like more OCD or more anal and more organized in that sense. I can kind of like get all over the place sometimes. Yeah. I'm like forgetting things all the time. It's like I'll put it in my calendar and then forget it because I'll just forget to look at my calendar. It's like, don't put it in there if you're not going to look at it.
Have you ever considered using the alarm function of your phone for that?
Yeah, I have to do that a lot, actually, because I know that I'll have stuff, and then I'll just forget it during the day. It'll be like I have to, if I have an interview at 2, I'm setting that alarm at 1:55.
That's what I have
and then
to do
sometimes it's going off, and I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah.
She thought today's podcast was 30 minutes later than it was.
Well,
I was like, no, Megan.
Yeah.
No, Megan. It's
yeah. Thank God for Stu in my life. She's really taken on a lot of that.
Well, she's always right, so it's good for it keeps you in line.
and Megan can't remember anyway, so I'm like, I'm like, damn, I write my own narrative.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's great. Finally, number 10, Megan, what 3 words would you most hope people would use to describe you?
Oh dear. She's dynamic.
Oh, you used a sentence?
Well, it's 2 words, and you don't have to.
She is dynamic.
Oh, she is. Okay, all right. But you don't have to do a sentence. They could be 3 separate words. You could just say dynamic.
Okay.
Dynamic, and then 2 other words.
caring.
Okay.
And fun. I'm fun.
Okay. I
Ooh,
like
I'm
those.
gonna say fun.
Sue?
I'm going to go with, I was going to say fun also, so fun, but engaging and reliable.
Oh, I like those.
Good ones.
I love the idea of one of you being dynamic and the other being reliable. It's good.
Yeah,
That's
pretty
probably
much.
a
I
good
feel like,
fit.
yeah, it helps. This has been my therapy.
Yeah, totally. That's why I end with this, because then people are like, "Oh man,
I feel so cleansed.
yeah." You have to Barbara Walters people into giving up the goods at the end. And then, do you guys have a recommendation of someone I should have on the podcast?
Oh, Diana, for sure.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Oh, yeah, she's wild. Get her in there.
You never know what's going to come out of it.
All right. Well, I look forward to you setting me up with her to get that done.
Okay. Good. Honestly, she's one of my close friends. I'm already going to wish you good luck. She's like impossible.
I know. That's why I said, great. I can't wait for you to make that happen.
We'll give it a go.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. This was so awesome. And I have like the biggest crush on you guys. You guys are the best. And I'm just so amazed by your badassery. So keep it up.
Thank you. Feeling is mutual.
Aw, thanks, guys.
And another thing.
On this week's That's What She Read, I'm a little late because I'm right after Thanksgiving, but I read this story, and to me, this is what we should all be thinking about all the time. And it's hard to count your blessings. It's hard to be thankful during the middle of the rat race and to look around and not find something to complain about. But I read this story, and it just reminded me during the holiday season, whether it's Thanksgiving, Hanukkah, Christmas, whatever, to be thinking about all the things you do have. There's a mom of a newborn, and during the wildfires in California, she asked a stranger to take her newborn and leave her behind. She ultimately did not have to make that sacrifice, but in the moment, that was the decision she was going to make to try to save her newborn baby if she wasn't able to make it. Mother of 3 was resting in a hospital in Paradise in California after having her baby via C-section. And about 7:30 a.m., a nurse rushes in and says that she and the newborn had to leave, that the fire was coming. She was unable to run or walk because of her surgery, was put into a wheelchair with the baby on her lap, and she was placed in a sedan of a hospital employee, guy that she'd never met before, and they're trying to drive away, propane tanks exploding around them, people abandoning their cars for fear of being burned alive. The fire actually melted the plastic taillights on the car she was in. And she wasn't able to wear a seatbelt due to her surgery. She still had an IV line in, and was making a pact with this stranger. If it comes down to it, I'm going to stay here. If you have to, I want you to take the baby and make a run for it, and I'll try my best to get out, but I want you to take him. It's just an incredible story, and it's such an unbelievably sad thing to even imagine. Fortunately, the woman, the baby, and the gentleman that was helping her all escaped, as did Sanders, the woman's husband, and other 2 children. But reading it is chilling, and the message is clear. So it's on HuffingtonPost.com. The headline's "Mom Escaping Wildfire Asked a Stranger to Take Her Newborn and Leave Her Behind." I recommend the read, especially anytime you're feeling like complaining about, I don't know, a rainy day or a coworker you don't like. Thanks, as always, for lasting about an hour with me.
That's what she said.
Hey, everybody, don't forget to go to ESPN and Apple Podcasts and subscribe to That's What She Said with Sarah Spain, so you always have the latest episode. Don't forget to rate and review it as well, and tell all your friends how awesome it is.